Olá, meu nome é Raul Candeloro e hoje eu vou falar com o Paul Spiegelman. Ele é cofundador do Small Giants Community, que é uma comunidade de pequenos gigantes. Hi, Paul.
Hi, how you doing, Ro?
Fine. Thanks for being here. We're honored to have you here in Brazil. Why is a small giant different from other companies?
A small giant is really a leader of a company who feels a certain way, who believes that business is about more than just getting as fast as we can get, as big as we can be. It's about living a values-based business and a mission-based life and focusing on making the world a better place.
It seems very nice, very poetic. Is it practical?
It is practical because one of the things that small giants think about is how to build profitable businesses and what leads to the most profitable businesses. And we believe that if you look at the tenets of being a small giant, which is about employee engagement, customer engagement, a multiple stakeholder approach, that statistics have proven over time with companies that have this approach that it leads to the most profitable business.
Okay, and what defines a small giant? The values it has, the choices it makes?
It's a combination of things. A small giant is really a company that is based on certain philosophies of business. And philosophies, for example, where we believe that internal culture is very important to driving the success of our business. Not only because it makes us more profitable, but because it's the right thing to do. So that internal culture or intimacy in terms of meeting and spending time with our employees, appreciating what they do, giving them a great place to work, is part of what becomes special to becoming a small giant. So it's not just about looking at the financials and the productivity, but it's looking at all the soft things that are sometimes very hard to do in business.
And do you think any company can try to be a small giant?
Well, I think any company can try, is what you said. Can any company get there? I think that's a question. What's happened is that business is really changing. And the businesses that are focused purely on profit, which is all about making as much money as we can, getting as big as we can get, those days are gone. And this multiple stakeholder approach and dealing with employees and customers as the value in our business is still rather new. So being a small giant is recognizing this approach and realizing then that it may take years to get there. It's difficult to do for a business that already exists, whereas a new business can decide to do business that way. I believe that any company, big or small, has the opportunity to become a small giant or have those same philosophies.
And what kind of decisions do they have to take? What are the hardest decisions they have to take? You talk a lot about firing some employees that are not aligned, firing customers that are not aligned. So could you talk a little bit about that?
A leader in a small giants company has to create trust. And that trust is by making sometimes very difficult decisions. I believe that the best companies are ones where we're forced to make those tough decisions and then we have the courage to make those. For example, there may be people in our companies that have great skills to do the job that they're doing, but their attitudes create a negative impact on the culture. And we're going to make those decisions to possibly fire people that have a negative impact on the culture, even though they might be productive in the business. That is not a decision all company leaders would make. Along the same lines, we might look at customers that don't meet the requirements to be an important and valued customer. It's not enough just to be a customer that drives revenue into the organization. If they somehow don't allow you to reach your vision or live up to your core values. So there's times we might have to make the tough decision just to fire a client. We're not just taking any business that comes to us, we're taking the right business because our business stands for something more than just creating revenue.
Excellent. And everyone in your team is aligned with that? When you fire a customer, how do you decide that? What kind of conversations do you have internally?
Well, we make those decisions as a group. When I decide or realize that there's a decision like that to be made, it would be one thing for me to just make the decision and let the team know that I've made that decision. But I find it's much more useful to bring that to the group and let the group make that decision. And then for me to support that decision shows my loyalty to them, and I know that they're going to come to the same conclusion I am because they're living the same values that I'm living.
Group is a word that comes a lot when I talk to you, and you believe a lot in committees, right?
Yes.
So you have internal committees. Could you talk a little bit about the ones that you have at Barrel?
Sure. I think that there's no such thing as consensus where everyone has to agree. I mean, we're a business like anyone else where people disagree and have tough conversations. But if you create ownership in programs and do that as groups, so I think you could be more successful. So we have a committee that basically is responsible for owning the sustainability of our culture. And there's different subcommittees that relate to events or community events or recognition, so that when people own it, they feel attached to it and they're accountable for it. That's what creates great results.
And going back to small giants, do you think you can have small giants anywhere in the world, or is it something that is exclusive to United States, for example? I personally know Salem in Holland. I think he's a small giant. You talked about one in Germany too. So how do you see that internationally?
Well, I think the international passion around small giants, to be honest with you, is even stronger than it is in the United States. And while in the United States, people look from the outside in and want to learn from the business that we do, there's sometimes a passion that I think is missing that I see in Brazil and I see in other countries. And it's that passion and that heart that is really what drives business. So to answer your question, I think becoming a small giant is possible in any country in the world. The pace may be different because if you come from countries where, for example, entrepreneurship or capitalism is brand new, they may be only 10 or 15 years into that. So the concepts that we talk about around culture are maybe a little bit foreign to them. So the old style command and control, a business is only about profit, might be what they're seeing today as the first stage of capitalism. But over time, they will go the same route. And so I like to spend my time going to places around the world where the feeling and the values are there, and I see that very much globally today.
Okay, and I understand you started to travel a lot because of the Small Giants community. What have you learned as a business person, as an entrepreneur, with all this traveling and all the people you met?
Well, I've learned that I just have one story, and my story is just one of experience, and that is a very finite experience. I've gotten a lot of value in my own life out of creating a small but successful business that makes the world a better place. I've also realized that I aspire to something more, and what that something more is to try to change the way business is done. And that's not something I'm going to do overnight, just like a culture is not built overnight. And so I'm learning every day by going out and talking to other business people and in different cultures how they do business. And that allows me not only to bring great ideas back to my own business, but allows me to now share those best practices with others. Because that's really what the Small Giants community is about. It's about relationships with people who share values with us around business and life, because those are the people we want to talk to.
Perfect, perfect, excellent. Final remarks. If you were going to tell someone aspiring to be a small giant, give him advice, what would that be?
Well, first is to step back and look inside and say, do I have what it takes to be an aspiring small giant? Those of us that may be looked at as small giants would probably never admit that we are anyway. So do I have the philosophy and values around life and business? If I do, then I want to reach out to become part of the community. And there's the Small Giants community that is global today that can be reached at smallgiants.org. And that is the first step to engaging others in a dialogue, because we don't learn just from our own experiences. We don't learn from reading books. We learn from talking to others who have been through what we're going to go through in the future. So if you're as much of a teacher as a learner, you want to be a part of the Small Giants community.
Oh, perfect. Aqui no Brasil, a nossa comunidade é smallgiantsbrasil.com.br. E eu falei aqui com o Paul Spiegelman, ele é presidente do Grupo Internacional da Small Giants Community. Foi um prazer estar aqui com você. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.